Hi everybody! Today we're going to be taking some invert samples, seeing what kind of invertebrates, how many, and what species live in different wetland types in Colorado. We've got a couple of different wetland types that we're sampling. We have riparian areas like you can see behind me. We also have basin wetlands, so ponds. Then we have irrigated hay meadows that are irrigated using flood irrigation, and the actual irrigation ditches themselves. So I'll show you what we do. So when the river levels are higher here, we typically stick this into the mud or the substrate, but here it's pretty rocky and the river's so low, as you can see, that we had to kind of improvise and just stack some weights on top of there to make sure it's actually down below the water. But we're looking at what the ducks are eating, and they're usually feeding right at the surface, if not 15 centimeters or so below. So we want it to be directly below the surface and sometimes even at the surface, so we can get anything that's on the surface of the water going into that trap. For each of our areas, we have 3 traps on each plot, then 3 plots for each habitat type, and 4 habitat types per property, and 3 properties. So if I did that correctly, I think it should be about 126 traps per sampling occasion. Sometimes we have ponds or wetlands that are dry. Oftentimes the hay meadows are dry, so we don't always get all of those. And we sample it 8 times throughout the season. So every 2 weeks, we're in late July here, so this is actually my last trap of my last sampling occasion. Trap itself is not that high tech. It's just a 2-liter soda bottle with the top cut off and inverted in there to make a funnel. I'll show you some of what we've got once I put it into the vial, but you can kind of see stuff swimming around in there. These riparian plots tend not to have a ton of inverts in them. They do get the occasional fish, however. So we'll go ahead and pour this into the bucket. What we're going to need today is this mesh bottom bucket. You can see we've put some JB weld in there so that the inverts don't get stuck in the little crack like on that side. And we will pour everything from the trap into this bucket. We use a squirt bottle, then to get them all over to the edge, and then we pour them into this little vial for later processing. Try to keep the bucket on kind of an angle so it all goes right into the corner where I want it, which I can't really do without 2 hands, and then you just go ahead and pour it in there. I've heard taking invert samples described as doing lab work in the field, because you have to get every single little guy in there to make sure that when you extrapolate those estimates to a larger area, it's actually correct. Okay, so I couldn't use my phone while I was pouring them into the vial, but I've got everything stored in here now. You can see a couple little fish in there, and some Chorixidae, which are water boatmen. Those are the ones that are moving around pretty quickly. I'm sure we've got a whole bunch of other stuff in there, but we'll go through this using a microscope and count and identify everything, hopefully down to family at least, if not species. Here's a little closer view of what we've got in here. You can see a couple little fish. Some of those red dots, I believe, are water mites. This guy moving around up here, right? Let's see. Ooh, there is a water boatman, Chorixidae. Yeah, he just moved. We often get quite a few leeches, but again, in these riparian areas, typically not a huge amount of diversity.